What's up, you guys? Sean Ross Sapp, managing editor, FightfulWrestling.com. Go there and get all of your wrestling news. We've got tons of it over there. Plenty of it over there. We'll tell you more about that later. But hey, if you're watching live on YouTube.com/Fightful, or even if you're not, leave a thumbs up, subscribe. We've been encouraging people to comment in the comment section below. Even if you're watching live, that helps us out. Comment below, tell us your favorite, your least favorite thing about WWE Smackdown. We'll engage with you, we'll talk with you, we'll chat with you. A guy who is well adept at that YouTube stuff is Mr. Warren Hayes. He is joining me live right now. Warren, how are you?
I'm doing very well. Very glad that that we got an improved version of SmackDown tonight. Even though certain patterns returned this evening, so certain things that would have been best left behind. But a show with some ups and a show with some downs, and not to steal anyone else's gimmick, but we are going to talk about the highs and lows, aren't we, Sean?
Yes, we are. If you want to talk about the lows and nothing but the lows, subscribe to our premium service, FightfulSelect.com. I'm posting exclusive news there all the time. And if you miss Alex Palowski on Raw and SmackDown reviews, he's got his own show. He goes an hour talking Raw and SmackDown, especially what he hates about Raw and SmackDown over there. We have a ton of great shows over there. Maybe you're not even interested in subscribing. Just go over there, see if there's something that you might like. It's worth the trip over there. But hey, if you are watching live right now on YouTube and you want your question or statement read on the air, donate a super chat. Any amount will get your question or statement read on the air. Let's talk about SmackDown Live. But as we went on the air, WWE 2K's Facebook got hacked. And I'm not going to repeat what it said. I posted it on Twitter. But this is still somehow like the third most controversial thing to happen to WWE 2K over the last month, Warren.
What a complete and utter mess this is. And I think it wasn't it even revealed like a day or two ago that they're actually using assets from 2018, from 2K 2018. Yes. This is ridiculous, and this is absolutely. As a gamer myself, and I follow gaming news on top of wrestling news. And if you are gamers right now listening, this is not something that is surprising to us, because as far as we like to call them AAA video games go, they're cutting more and more. They being the video game developers, cutting more and more into time allotted to create the games. Rushing with deadlines, and there's just no more time to create quality games. It's ridiculous that we have stuff like 2K20 being put out in the state that it's in, but this is something that's happening across the board. Games are no longer released in true final products in their true final form, but it's all the more astounding when you have a game which comes out annually. And that is essentially a retread with the same engine for the past 5 years or so. It's astounding that they're releasing it in the state that it's in. This has been a complete disaster, a complete and utter disaster. And I feel bad for anyone who dropped money on 2K20 this year. I really do.
Yeah, I feel bad for me using the 45 minutes or so it took to download the review copy at this point. It is an abomination. An abomination. As all the angry old white people in my neighborhood say, it ain't natural, and I don't appreciate them forcing it on me. It's not good. And all due respect to the hardworking people at WWE 2K, because they got to put these games out every year.
Hey, listen.
This ain't an EA UFC situation where it's every couple years. It's every year, and now there's shit's getting hacked.
And yeah, then that's just on top of that. And let's be clear on this. It's often just like when we talk about wrestling, and often it's not necessarily the wrestler's fault, but how they're booked or how creative goes. It's the same situation here. The devs work hard. They work within the confines of what they have to do, what management wants them to do, what the expectations are, what the deadlines are. They're just doing their job. They're doing their best. It's not on the developers themselves. There's the publishers, there's management. And 2K doesn't have a great track record either. So yeah.
2K NBA is trash this year too.
That's another trash year. Exactly.
Kyler James, because he's got that beautiful wrench next to his name. I'll read his statement. He says, Warren should do a video game pod. It's funny you mentioned that because once upon a time when we had shows every single day, we didn't have one on a Friday, and I was going to do an alternating show. 1 week it would be about wrestling video games, 1 week about wrestling title belts, 1 week about wrestling figures, and then 1 week about merch, and then it would change every month. Then when Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins started their action figure podcast, I listened to it, and I was like, we ain't doing better than that. No offense. We ain't doing better than that, and I don't like to do shows unless I think we are going to be the best show at it. If we have a show out, I think that we have the best version of that show possible, and we weren't beating that. That's a really damn good podcast, but maybe on Select, me and Warren will do some wrestling video game pods sometimes. I think that could be really fun, like going back and reviewing some of those.
Yeah.
Young Bibby says, Undisputed Era in the women's match was the good part. Also, is it me or what? But I can tell Carmella was somewhat over with the crowd. Carmella gets over with like every crowd, though.
That's not a surprise to me.
Yeah, she's just real good, man.
Yep.
Like, I love watching Carmella work at this point, and you can tell she loves what she's doing. Zach Connor says, yay, maybe we can get a blue light now for Bray versus Bryan. Damn. Well, I know one thing. Chad Gable got his clothes in a blue light special. This opening segment that led into his match, I could not believe they replayed that literal dog shit promo. But I guess what they're doing with Corbin, Warren, is doing the he thinks he's funny and entertaining, but he's not thing. But the thing is, like, if I weren't covering this, that would make me not want to watch the show. I'd be like, what's happening on Dateline right now?
Okay. Who in their right mind decides to start their show tonight? Like, the first thing you see is a replay of the awful promo we got from Baron Corbin last week. Who said this is a good idea to rehash this? What? Just jump into Baron Corbin and Roman Reigns fighting. Never mind the yips. But well, then we understood very quickly why they did that. But this is the thing. Doing someone who thinks they're funny but they're not still requires comedic timing. And this is some timing in general, as far as their skits goes in WWE, they're not great with it. When they have segments backstage, where they're having two people talk to each other and then one walks off and one just stares like this.
Yes.
They should cut that shit like 2-3 seconds before, and it'll make things less awkward. And that's the problem that they have. I understand what they're trying to do, but it's failing because they don't have the timing to make it happen. They just don't.
Well, King Corbin comes out to join Ziggler and Rude, and the crowd boos King Corbin heavily. And as long as the crowd makes noise for Corbin, WWE will keep thinking that content like last week's promo is good. Like, I didn't see a lot of Baron Corbin live, and then when I saw him live in Lexington and I heard how loud the crowd was, I was like, okay, I could see why Vince McMahon, who is sitting on the other end of that screen over there, hears that and thinks, God damn it, pal, he's great. Even though I see a massive reaction. I get the feeling Vince McMahon doesn't really tap into YouTube chats and Twitter and see what people think of him. A lot of people like his work in the ring, but those promos, I don't buy it when anybody tells me best heel in the business, Baron Corbin. Do I think he could be? I really do think he could be. I think he could be the best heel in the business because I see how he zings people on Twitter, and I watched Breaking Ground, and I saw all these things.
Sure.
And I see his willingness and almost necessity, his desire to get better in the ring. I see all that, and I know that if he was left to his own devices, he would have some really great stuff. But I don't see that here.
And that's what's most infuriating. And you're talking about Breaking Ground. You don't even have to go that far back. We just have to go back to King of the Ring.
Yes.
Where he was an excellent heel. I turned completely on his side during King of the Ring, not just because of his heel work, but because of his in-ring work as well. We saw shades of Baron Corbin where we were like, God damn, okay, if this is where they're moving towards, if this is what they're moving towards as far as his character development goes, let's do it. Because he has all the tools to be an excellent top-tier heel. But for some godforsaken reason that I can't put my finger on, Sean, I don't understand. They latch him down with the stupidest, corniest, lame comedy heel stuff that just doesn't click. And everything is forced when you see three grown men athletes like Baron Corbin and Dolph Ziggler and Bobby Roode force laughing because there's a dog mascot walking down the ring. I am not sitting there going, wow, this is great. I'm cringing. What? I feel horrible for them in the ring.
And they messed up that too. The fact that they did not have that mascot dog come out and say suffer and succotash, they blew it. They blew it! The one thing! Like, you have the dog bark out in a high-pitched thing, suffer and succotash. And that's like, you do that, come on. The one thing.
That would have turned the entire segment around. It really would have.
So Corbin, and like, he reminds me of, like, the king of the playground in Recess. Like, but he's a 34-year-old man. And this is coming from a 34-year-old man that still does mama jokes to people on YouTube. Like, he's like, well, it is a royal decree, as if he has any power. But then again, maybe he does, because as we see by the end of the night, Miz apparently decided that The Fiend and Daniel Bryan were wrestling at Survivor Series. Not like next week or in 2 weeks. He decided. So maybe Baron Corbin does have that. But he wants Ziggler and Roode to be on his team, and we already knew that they were going to face Ali and Shorty G, but Baron Corbin demands he's the captain of the Survivor Series team. And the mascot came out and bowed to Corbin. And then we got the match. Now, why wasn't Roman Reigns out there to begin with? He finally came out. Like, did he have to have, like, enough time to wet his hair after he saw the dog?
Yeah, probably. I think he was sitting backstage, you know, in his Joe bun, you know, just sitting around. And then all of a sudden he's like, oh, they're taking it this far. They're bringing out a mascot in my merch. Son. And then he goes to the locker room and he flips his hair over and, you know, and he starts wetting it. Yeah. And it's probably quite a process. There's a lot of hair.
Yeah. So Chad Gable's gear gets dragged and it is garbage. It's garbage. Even by like standard basketball gear, it's trash.
I did get a good chuckle at the Space Jam references from Corey Graves, though.
Corey Graves was on tonight. He was popping Michael Cole often. Yeah. But the work here is solid, not to be surprised, because 4 really good workers, and Rude's one of the greatest tag team workers ever, I think. But there's a lot of gaga and bullshit, as Bruce Pritchard would say, that outshines everything. Ali superkick Ziggler, sets up a good hot tag from Gable. If there's one thing I hate in WWE, it's the suicide shove that we see out of all their wrestlers that gallop through the ropes, lean through, and just cross their hands and push somebody. And I'm thinking, why didn't you just walk out there and physically run into this person and push them if that's what you were going to do? Oh, well. Reigns spears Baron Corbin outside the ring. Shorty Gable hits a German suplex, and Ali does a 450 on Ziggler. Really good spot to end the match. And they're going on to Team SmackDown. What'd you think?
I thought this was a good match. Actually, when it came back from commercial, when the match started cooking, it was sizzling. Once they were done with Roman coming out and the confrontations with the dog mascot, the match started pulling together. You know, like you said, Bobby Roode is unquestionably one of the best tag team workers that has graced the sport of pro wrestling in a long, long time, and it showed again tonight. I think he and Ziggler work well, and they really should try to push them a little more, because I think it is an effective team. They're even starting to get some double team offense, and I'd be all in for more of these guys. This was good. Like I said, once it started cooking, it was good.
Yeah, I agree. If not for hammering those really stupid promos into the ground, it would have been better. But I guess they want to go that route I mentioned earlier.
And just to wrap this first segment up completely, Sean, we've heard so much in the lead up to SmackDown on Fox that Fox wanted to focus on the sports aspect, right? They wanted the sports. They wanted competitors. They wanted the real athletes. They wanted Brock. And we're starting off with the goofiest segments and the dumbest shit. And it's even more baffling to me that over the past few weeks, ever since we've been into this new reality with NXT on Wednesdays along with AEW, and NXT every week starts with a goddamn match. Every week it starts with a match. We dive right in, and usually it's one of the best matches of the night. The NXT is bookended usually with two great matches. AEW, with a couple of exceptions, always start with the match as well. And even Raw has switched it up as well.
Yes.
I'm fascinated that even in this context, WWE thinks that on SmackDown, it's always a good idea to start off with a promo, start off with a segment, instead of just diving right in, especially when, technically speaking, this is their A show now. It's the network show. This is the one that everyone should be watching, that can watch. It just baffles my mind that despite everything we've heard, we're still getting goofy, corny segments to start off the evenings, and it just blows my mind.
So backstage, Rude and Ziggler are upset, and Corbin says he'll fix this. And then he walks away with the dog. Did we see him anymore?
No, that was it. I don't know. I think what he said, I'll fix this, I think it was like the flap of fabric that was coming apart on the back of the dog's head,
Oh, man. Firefly Funhouse. Bray Wyatt's there, and he says something doesn't seem right. And then he turns the WWE Universal title blue. Personally, I love the look. Of course, some people will complain about anything. And for some people, it's just not a good look. And that's fine. I understand that. But I saw some people say, scary Bray Wyatt with a blue title. And I'm like, what? Like, it's going to be the color that the brand is on. They're not going to leave it red. Like, come on. I don't have a problem with that since it's all... I would prefer it not be either. I'll put it like that. I'd prefer it be black or white or something like that. But blue, sure. I thought it looked better than red.
It's an upgrade from the red. I don't know why people would have a problem with Bray Wyatt wearing something extremely colorful. I mean, this is a guy who hangs out in a fun house, in a children's show environment with puppets, and he's all gleeful and happy when he's not the Fiend. I will tell you what would be really, really neat, kind of like when Daniel Bryan had the hemp belt.
Yeah.
It'd be neat if, Bray Wyatt has the standard blue title, but when the Fiend comes out, he has his own, like, rugged, a little messy, maybe, covered in graffiti or painted words, hell, let me in, stuff like that. If the Fiend had on top of that his own version, that would be really, really neat.
It'd be kind of cool if they were able to, like, in the grooves of that, like, make something that kind of glowed.
Yeah. Yes.
There you go. Like red, like, type of thing. Aaron J's fan says, I think I know what Warren's hot trash might be. I don't know what you mean by that.
It's part of my gimmick on my show every Thursday nights, 9 p.m. on youtube.com/Mr. Warren. Hey, subscribe now.
You all should subscribe now. You all should. Brian Medina says, Vince's idea to let Roman versus Corbin in a dog collar match, or Vince's idea is to do Roman versus Corbin in a dog collar match at TLC and Bray versus Bryan in a blue light special match. Well, obviously the blue light is a joke, but dog collar match. You know what? Between those two, a lot of people are hating on that idea, and I get it. It's stupid. They're doing all this dog imagery, and that's dumb. But
Hey,
I think they would have a good dog collar match.
as long as it's not a Kennel from Hell match,
Yeah.
whatever it was called, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I think the two would absolutely rock the shit in a dog collar match. I really do. Reminder, guys, donate a super chat, any amount. Get your question or statement read on the air. Drew Gulak has been feuding with Braun Strowman for like a month, I think.
On and off.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't won anything.
No.
Except for like kind of an argument one time over Tyson Fury beating him.
Mm-hmm.
Which to the right people, winning an argument is everything. But the B team is out there with him. What do you think of them putting the B team with Drew Gulak at least for this?
I have very strong feelings about my boy Drew.
Yeah.
I love Drew Gulak. God,
He's good. He's real good.
He is one of the best. And I loved his transition when he got ready to become Cruiserweight champion on 205 Live. He let his hair grow out, the beard, started talking nuclear stuff on Twitter, and he became all business. No more goofiness. No more looking out for a better 205 Live. It was like a better Drew Gulak. And he became Cruiserweight champion. They move him up to Raw. They have him shave his great hair. And they're sort of leaning back into the PowerPoint presentation stuff, but without going all in on it. Now, the PowerPoint presentation stuff was fantastic because Drew Gulak is a super charismatic guy who can cut promos like crazy. He's really, really good. And when he did that and did it with the as a president, like a politician, you know, someone going around with picket signs, and he leaned completely into it. It was comedy, but it was good. It was smart. And they're sort of kind of doing it again, but not really. So this is all I want for Drew Gulak. I want Drew Gulak to have a proper spotlight. I want people to appreciate him for what he is. So if they're going to bring back the PowerPoint stuff, if they're going to do let's turn to the Titantron stuff, well, at least go back and lean into it 100% instead of half-assing it here, because even for people who don't know what his 205 Live character used to be, I think it's a little confusing. It's like, why is he doing this? Just go ahead. Bring it back if you want.
The issue with a guy like Gulak is they've already marginalized him so much and beaten him so much that they'd have to get him back over to really do anything substantial with him for a win over him to mean anything again. Because on SmackDown, he's done nothing but lose. So
Sure.
What do? They have him beat Gable and Ali. Well, that hurts Gable and Ali. They've already put him with a team called the B Team, who pretty much let you know, we're jobbers, sup, it's in our name. They would have to get some wins back for him, but everybody, as I've said, is so mid on these shows. Everyone is so average and mediocre that it's hard for anyone to step up. So when somebody gets a win, they almost always immediately get a loss. And if they get a month's worth of wins, then they just lose for a month straight. Nobody ever gets over, and it's a big problem. Braun Strowman kicks their asses. Cool. Backstage, Sami Zayn says he needs an answer from Daniel Bryan about whether he's with them or not. Zayn says that he ran to get help from Nakamura when The Fiend attacked Daniel Bryan. And Bryan says he doesn't need their help and is not joining their group, and instead suggests Braun Strowman. And Zayn says, what? He's just big and strong. He's got nothing to offer us. And then he turns around into Braun and he begs off and says, hey, well, we'll take it under consideration. Your thoughts on this? Do we see this go anywhere with Braun and Zayn? Maybe a match next week, but anywhere?
Yes. Again, Sami Zayn is proving his worth. He's absolutely fantastic in what he's doing. Is this going to lead to Braun and Shinsuke maybe even? Is Braun finally going to get that highly evasive singles title? Maybe. I'm interested to see where this is going to go, because clearly we're not going down the Sami, Shinsuke, Cesaro, Daniel Bryan route, where it would have been really neat to have Daniel Bryan have to fight like a gauntlet of dudes, maybe to get to Sami Zayn, having to fight Cesaro, having to fight Shinsuke Nakamura, and then having to fight Sami Zayn. Gosh darn it, Sean, what a terrible series of matches that would have been.
Yeah.
Gee whiz, thank goodness we were missing out on that, and we're focusing on the Fiend instead, which is not a bad thing. But I sort of sit there and I'm like, what a missed opportunity here. As for Braun, look, what do you do with Braun Strowman?
Push him to the moon.
But they're not.
Yeah.
It's like it's start, stop, start, stop. Yes.
On one brand right now, they have The Fiend, Braun Strowman, Daniel Bryan, Roman Reigns, and Kofi Kingston. Oh, by the way, Big E is also very good.
Mm-hmm.
That's 5 to 6 incredible anchors. You got 5 guys that have had top runs or have looked like they were poised for it. That's on a 2-hour show, having those 5 guys, man, and that's just the guys. That's before you get to Bayley and Sasha Banks.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. It's just mind-boggling to me that they could have a mediocre show, let alone a bad show. And I don't necessarily think the show was bad at all, but it's weird to me that they could even have a mediocre show with the level of talent. And I didn't get into Sami Zayn. I didn't get into Nakamura. I didn't get into Chad Gable and those guys who struggle to get over and stay over. It's just 4 really good pillars, and then another one too. It's weird to me.
And it's as if they're always struggling to find them stuff to do, And quite honestly, it's not that hard when you have talented men and women. Sometimes WWE overthinks it too much.
It feels like they're always waiting to set up the next big coronation. Like, oh, well, we can't give them this push now. We can't give them this title now because they got to have that moment. That moment. It's got to be that perfect moment for them. And for Kofi Kingston, that worked. But here's the thing. He was never near that for 10 years. Mm-hmm. And that became the catalyst for his moment. In 1998, Steve Austin won the WWF title in March. He won it in June. He won it the following March. He won it the following June. The Rock won that title in November 98, January 99, February 99. He won it again in 2000, like 2 or 3 different times. And that's the hottest era we've ever seen. Triple H won the title 3 or 4 times through there. Do I think hot potatoing the title is the way to do it? Not necessarily, but I don't know that you'll ever look upon that era of all the things and say, you know what? That main event era was just so mid. It was so average. That title didn't mean anything. Nobody had runs that were like 3 months long back then. Like almost nobody until the turn of the century. And still people cared about it. They were up on their feet. They were excited because these people were strong and they were kept strong. And they weren't losing via roll-up to friggin' everybody every week. That Drew McIntyre last year was hot as a firecracker. And they started putting Ziggler over him. And all due respect to Ziggler, I get it. I get what he means when he does that Van Vliet interview. And he says, I got to tell Vince McMahon or whoever, what am I if I don't ever beat these guys? Like, I get it. I understand that. But that wasn't the spot to beat Drew McIntyre. A lot of these, whatever spot that Braun Strowman has been beaten in over and over again or taken down from, unless it was Reigns and maybe Lesnar, wasn't the spot for him.
No.
Ah, man. It's just so frustrating, man.
And it's an excellent point you bring up, and to prove your point here, because Stone Cold, The Rock, Triple H, but then you also had Mick Foley in there picking up the title. And even if Mick Foley didn't get the title as much as those other guys did, just the fact that he did, that he was included in this circle of main eventers, that he was elevated there, he just became credible, and he was always in top matches. He was always in interesting stuff, and we were always behind. And that's what they should be doing, instead of just like feeling like everyone is being lowered. No one is being elevated. There's no dynamic up at the top. There's no real switching around. It's just like it's puzzle pieces, and that's what's infuriating. It's like, well, this one fits, this one doesn't. Well, since this one doesn't, we'll go back to someone else that fits, basically.
I'm going to deem the Braun Strowman spot the cricket wireless spot. Even though he doesn't do Cricket Wireless ads, it's just the person that they have slotted there.
Right.
Colin Jost, there you go. Michael Shea, there you go. Tyson Fury comes in for a minute. There you go. You need somebody to do a Cricket Wireless read. There you go. Join the nation's fastest growing wireless network. You need somebody to go do a celebrity softball game. There you go. Don't ask him to be WWE champion, though. That'd be too much. That'd be giving him too much. And if you go back to our late 2017 podcasts, me and Alex called this specifically. We sarcastically read Cricket Wireless ads on the air as Braun Strowman because we saw him getting over, and we're like, ooh, he's so over right now. He's ready to be the guy. But this that got him over, this, hey, I'm going to destroy Roman Reigns anytime I'm like T1000 scanning the arena for him and find him, they're going to move away from that, and they'll have to make him kid-friendly to some degree. And they're going to have to do something to normalize him, and that's what they've done. And it's very frustrating because he's very good at this.
Yes, he is.
And they've got a lot of talented people. Well, we get to talk about something I really liked. New Day defending against the Revival. This match ruled, Warren.
Yep. Aside from the fact that perhaps with the disappearance of the brand split, the return of the automatic rematch is back. Perhaps, Sean, though. Am I being nitpicky here? Am I just scratching a little bit too much here? Is the spirit of Alex Pulowski entering my body right now? But it did kind of bug me, but I will concur that it is a nitpick because this was fantastic.
No water in the pool for Dawson. This comes after a great power slam on Kofi by Wilder. Big E Uranagi Dawson hard. Dash has been busting out that tornado DDT a lot lately. I like it. Midnight Hour gets thwarted, and I love this Dawson spot. So the Arn Anderson spot, he would fake a punch, get the person to duck, and hit a DDT. Dawson did swing, and I think Big E ducked, and he still hit the DDT.
Yep.
And the Arn Anderson influence there is evident with this team. Come on. Couple of great spots. Revival caught Kofi flying over the top rope and just destroyed him into the post, Warren.
That was fantastic. And then immediately after, and this was what I really liked about this situation here. They caught him, they destroyed him. Then they grab Big E and they drop him like high level up on his back against the commentary table, and then immediately rush him back into the ring because they're feeling it. Kofi's dead. We just knocked out Big E. They get him in, hit the Shatter Machine. Like, now you could feel it. It was like, oh my God, the Revival are going to win. The Revival are going to win. You know when there's a championship match going and people want to win, it was exciting. And then Kofi just flies in off the top rope to break up the pin, which I always think it's funny when people break up pins by flying off the top rope. I'm thinking, amazing. Damn son, that's a risk. That takes some timing. But it's a little, overboard. But it's pro wrestling, so it's fine. It works.
That Shatter Machine was great, and then Undisputed Era came out and attacked everyone in the match. I didn't have a problem with this rematch because New Day are fighting champions and stuff, but I'm so glad the rematch clause is not around anymore. I'm stoked. But this one having an indefinite ending, I kind of dug. Undisputed Era came out as mentioned, and the SmackDown locker room emptied out, Warren. I thought this was a good way to end the match.
I think it was really good. Again, just putting over the NXT guys who then run. They hit the bricks immediately. Although everyone got some offense in, you got to see Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish hit the high-low as well. I like that they went after the Revival as well. I'm still kind of bummed that we're not going to get Undisputed Era and the Revival in the same ring at the same time. That's a bit of a bummer. But you still can't complain about the triple threat tag team match at Survivor Series. War Machine, War Raiders, Viking Experience, whatever. Undisputed Era and the New Day. I mean, these are three highly accomplished teams. There is no reason for that match to not rule. It's going to be great.
Heavy Machinery beat some jobbers. You know the drill here. This is abuse. Corey does crack Michael Cole up with some of his lines on Otis, though. That was good.
I like the when they were both doing stalling suplexes, and they sort of cheered each other. You know, they did a cheers. So I was like, wait, is this a Super Collider variant here? Because we're not supposed to do that anymore.
They had the Kip line, which a lot of people said, oh, it's a shot at Kip Sabian or Billy Gunn, who is Kip Sop. No, I don't care.
I love you, internet Twitter, wrestling Twitter, but sometimes take the tinfoil hats off. Just a little.
Okay, I got, the fact that there are people caping for what we're about to talk about, like some of the confusion associated, is very frustrating to me, because it will show you that whether it be WWE or AEW or NXT or even ROH, New Japan, some people will cape for anything. Bayley is set to face Nikki Cross. We get the "you see" line from Sasha Banks. Drives me nuts. But they go at it right in the ring. Sasha just talked trash about Nikki Cross. Just did it. Shayna hits the ring. Bayley leaves. Then Rhea Ripley, Tegan Nox, Dakota Kai, Mia Yim, all of whom are feuding with Shayna, help her back down Bayley. Now, I get it. Who did Bayley attack Wednesday?
Shayna.
So it was Shayna. So she didn't even, that we know of, didn't attack these women. Correct?
It was implied that Bayley attacked the babyface, the babyface war game team. Yes.
Implied, not outright saying it. So a little bit of leeway there. Shayna then gets attacked by Sasha Banks and a big brawl breaks out. And Sasha lays down a challenge right now, and joining her is Nikki Cross, who she just talked trash to. Now, the other team, the NXT team, sure, that makes sense to me. These four get along. Tegan Nox, Rhea Ripley, Dakota Kai, Mia Yim. Dakota's a little bummed out, sure, but they get along. But they just came out and helped Shayna because they've got a team with Shayna, or at least some combination of them do, I presume, at Survivor Series.
No, those are all the baby faces, dude.
Right?
Shayna's team at NXT is Io, Bianca Belair, and Kaylee Ray. They're on the four women who were at SmackDown tonight. Only Dakota Kai is not involved in the War Games.
And as of now, we don't know who's involved in the Survivor Series Team NXT, correct?
That is correct.
Not a clue.
Not a clue.
Not a clue. Brand supremacy!
Yep.
God damn, it's the dumbest thing ever. It's the dumbest thing ever.
I wasn't sure if you were going to go on a rant. Here we go. So basically, this is what I find infuriating about NXT, and this has been going on for years. Whenever main roster sort of makes its way into NXT or on whatever level, the storytelling in NXT makes sense when it comes down. Well, if we're still talking about main roster and main roster coming down to NXT, when it bleeds in, it still makes sense. Bayley pops up on Wednesday. She attacks Shayna Baszler and she hits the bricks because she has a feud with Shayna. But you didn't have Shayna's the team, the War Games team facing Shayna's team, basically Team Ripley, come out to defend Shayna.
Sorry to interrupt. Bayley tweeted that she took out Team NXT.
Okay.
So there we go. That is explained, sure. But still, why are they backing up Shayna?
It doesn't make any sense because like I said, of the four women, the four NXT women who came tonight, 3 of them are on the opposing War Games match.
Yes.
This Wednesday, Mia Yim busted her face open and cracked her back, trying to win an advantage for Team Ripley over Team Shayna. Why would she then turn around and say, hey, you know what? Shayna, if Bayley tries to split, I got your back. No, she was gushing blood in the middle of the ring.
Now, I could see these women wanting to show up to attack Bayley. Yeah, sure, but Bayley hit the bricks. They let her go. She wasn't involved in this tag match.
Yeah,
She's gone.
She just left.
Gone.
It ended. They ended up feuding with. They ended up getting into a scrap with Sasha, Nikki, Carmella, and Dana Brooke.
They did not need to have these shows back to back. Personally, the way I would have done it, I would have held off War Games till like January. You have the women from NXT lose their match as like, hey, Rhea Ripley, Shayna Baszler, Bianca, some mixture of them. And the blame game is the fingers pointed, the blame game is set, and they're like, okay, well, I got a team and you got a team now. Let's go to War Games. Shayna's like, I can put together a better team than you can. We'll see whose fault it was. And, man, I cover this full time. I edit like 50 articles a day that has every bit of news that comes through there. It is very hard for me to keep track of if and who is on what team at some point.
Well, especially when it comes to Survivor Series, there's literally only Team SmackDown that's been announced. They're the only team that we know what the composition looks like.
By the way, Nikki Cross, who got the win tonight, is not yet announced for Team SmackDown. Probably will be, but.
Your booking makes sense. It would make sense for them to wait and be like the War Games. We're holding the War Games because you guys made us look bad. Ultimately that's the thing. It could all start from this. You made NXT look bad because we lost, and that would have been a lot more compelling. Because right now, as far as Survivor Series goes, I am really excited for the women's matches. I think they're doing a great job building the triple threat. I think they're doing a fantastic job at it. Everything that they're pulling together here is working, and I'm really, really excited for it. And I'm not excited for War Games, but there's just so much going on. I agree. It's a little much, and it feels like they could have just stretched it out a bit just to allow this all of this bubbling effervescence that we have right now, the extra focus that they're putting on the women's division in NXT for it to just ride it out a little longer. How about what was it? It was Big Red Gum that would say, make it last a little longer. Pop a big red gum in your mouth, NXT and WWE, and let the women's division thrive through this a little longer than just a couple of weeks. I think it would have served a greater purpose for sure.
They really rushed this at an odd time because of the issues with Saudi Arabia, and they booked themselves into another corner, and it seems like they're booking themselves into a corner once a month at this point. Mm-hmm. This is supposed to be the well-oiled machine, but there's a massive goddamn oil leak.
So this is Saudi Arabia. Very good, Sean. Very clever.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah. The thing. This is always the thing that I like to pull up when people come out and say, well, when I ask questions on Twitter, and people are like, well, it's WWE, people go, welp, but it boggles my mind every single time when stuff like this happens, when it's not just they're the biggest company, they're $1 billion company.
Infinite
they have
resources,
hundreds of people at their employ. And I've beat on this nail, and I'm going to do it again until it goes right through the wood and into y'all's skulls. No, I'm kidding. They hire a team of television writers. They literally have a writer's room of people that are paid to come up with ideas and scripts and whatnot. And despite the fact that they have these people exclusively doing this job week after week, we end up in situations that don't make sense, that seem to make sense 1 week, 2 weeks, and then Another week after, it's like, well, we're just treading water. And it just cannot, it boggles the imagination that they have all these resources at their disposition and they're acting like a third tier indie show sometimes. It's really, really fascinating. And no, it's not excusable. And no, at some point you have to stop saying, well, it's Vince. Well, it's Vince. We know Vince has a lot of influence, we should expect more from WWE. And this is one of the reasons why we sit here, you and I, Sean, and we talk about stuff and we rail on this stuff because we expect them to do better.
Yeah.
They should be doing better. And on top of that, we want them to do better because we criticize because we love wrestling, because we want WWE to do well. Because here's the truth, guys and gals. If WWE does well, all of wrestling does well. It's just as simple as that. Why do you think AEW is around? Well, because WWE's been floundering. If WWE starts doing well, AEW is going to do well as well. Everyone is going to do well.
Our shows then do well. We went from some of our most lackluster numbers ever to some of our best numbers ever with the draft starting over the sense of optimism and AEW and all that stuff to underwhelming again when WWE underperformed. And hey, we ain't out here buying traffic. We ain't out here buying clickety-clacks and likes and inflating our shit. What you see is what you get there. And when WWE does well, we ride that wave and we get increased numbers, increased traffic, increased super chats, increased subscriptions, all that stuff. And I've got people that are like, oh, you want it to be like Game of Thrones. I've never watched an episode of Game of Thrones, homeboy. Not a one. My baseline is I want it to make sense. If it makes sense, if you got one show that makes sense start to end and develops people, I'm pretty well satisfied. I'm like, you know what? I didn't waste my time. Well, this match was pretty decent. Nobody in NXT looked out of their depth. Mia Yim always looks like maybe a half step off, but hey, to her credit, she got crushed 2 days ago.
My God.
Rhea Ripley has such a main event presence. Jesus Christ. If she won the Royal Rumble in 2 months, I would not have a problem in the world with it.
No. And you kind of want that to happen. My God, man. I mean, and she has that kind of presence. Let's just harken back to a couple of weeks ago when she did appear, had her surprise appearance on NXT and went nose to nose with Shayna Baszler in one of the last episodes that was still on the network, and people flipped out. People completely lost their minds. She's amazing, and she has improved so much, Sean, since winning the NXT UK Women's Championship. She has improved so much, and she's only going to keep going up. Poor Dana Brooke tonight. She barely got anything in. She did her handspring elbow thing.
Yeah.
And that was it. And I'm like, this is an 8-person tag match. Why didn't she? There was room for her. Poor Dana. She just can't catch a break. My God.
Some of the highlights of this match. Great tilt-a-whirl into a choke, into a suplex with Ripley and Banks. That was amazing. And Dakota Kai's kick from that angle looked awesome.
Looked great.
Nikki Cross wins with the Purge. All hell breaks loose, and Sonya runs out to help Team SmackDown. Then we get the main event segment. Miz goes at Daniel Bryan about his feud with The Fiend. He says that Bryan doesn't know who he is anymore, doesn't know if he's the leader of the Yes Movement or a guy who likes to recycle or what it is, and says that Bryan is washed up when he won't talk back. This fires up Bryan, and he was like, well, I didn't talk because Miz TV sucks, and it always has. And when Miz tries to cut off Bryan, Bryan goes off on him and says, I'm mentally unstable to the point where I do a lot of things to stay successful, things that you wouldn't understand, but Bray Wyatt does understand. Bray Wyatt appears on the screen for a Firefly Funhouse, and Bryan wants to fight him for the Universal Championship. It is accepted, and Miz books it for Survivor Series. What'd you think? I mean, I thought the promo was good. I thought Miz was good. It didn't make sense that Miz did that. I mean, Brian should have said that, like, face me at Survivor Series for the title, and it would have made a lot of sense.
Well, I guess this is the world this is the world we live in now, where we don't have authority figures, so I guess this means, everyone has authority to create pay-per-view
I mean,
main
all
events.
Miz has to say is, I'm getting it in my ear right now.
Yeah.
He's out there with an earpiece, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's actually a really good idea. It's like, oh, I'm getting news from the Fox executives. They want this to happen, kind of thing, just something like that. I was really digging the first part. Well, I'll get this out of the way. I am not a fan of main event segments. I never have been. And your wrestling show needs to end with a wrestling match. But if we're going to talk about the segment in and about itself, I thought it reminded me of how good Daniel Bryan and The Miz are when they're pecking at each other. And it just reminded me how much of a missed opportunity and a complete flub it was last year when Daniel Bryan came back and had his feud with The Miz, and how much that was just completely bungled from top to bottom. You had such a great built-in feud with legitimate history, and just ended up with the wives anyway. But it was good here because at some point, Brian was like, "Shut your mouth, Miz. Let me talk." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And we've been having a couple of great promos from the competition recently, right, Sean? And right when I was watching that, I was like, "Look, you have two of the best mic workers in the company right now. Are we going to try and echo?" Some of the more unscripted stuff that we've seen, the more visceral things that we've seen from Cody and MJF this week, but no, we didn't get that exactly. And I like the idea of Daniel Bryan and Bray Wyatt relating on the fact that they're a little nuts. I really like the fact, and this is something we talked about, I think, last week, really like the fact that Bray Wyatt mentioned, he remembers, I'm sure you remember, Daniel, referencing back to their history when Daniel Bryan did join the Wyatt family and then turned on the Wyatt family. We were talking about it last week, that if they leaned into this, it would just give so much purpose, automatic story to this feud right here. It'd be great. And then the yes thing, where Bray Wyatt is just like, he's completely lost it. I like this idea, and it makes sense. But this has always been part of the Bray Wyatt character, but it's working extra well now to use these little nuggets of crazy to just get into the heads of their opponents. And I like this because Daniel Bryan clearly doesn't want to lean back into the yes move. And he said it himself in the promo. He said, "I killed it because I'm insane." But Bray's pushing those buttons. He's like, "Yeah, are you sure? Are you sure you're done with this, Bryan? Are you sure that you're done with the yes movement? Because I'm going to bring it back. I'm going to make you regret ever mentioning this again." And that's part of what the Fiend is. It's an extension of everything that Bray Wyatt hates. It's his revenge. It's his harbinger of darkness. So it all works. It makes sense at this point. We got 2 weeks. Next week is the go home show.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know how much you could build into this, but I'm just looking at this whole story. I'm looking at the whole thing, Sean, and this is another circumstance where you're like, you don't need the Universal title, and they're gonna prove us right when we said that Bray Wyatt doesn't need the Universal title to have compelling feuds. It's just a prop. He literally pulled it out of a toy box.
I have somebody saying, "Who's the babyface in this feud?" And hey, for all the people that are like, "You don't criticize WWE or AEW, and AEW or WWE does this," I don't have a problem if there's not a babyface or a heel in any feud. I like the idea of getting to decide who I'm interested in and not, and elements of babyface and heel showing up in multiple characters. I like the onions. I like the multi-layered characters. That's what I want.
Like Shrek.
Yes. Exactly like Shrek.
Sean likes Shrek.
I do. I enjoy it. I also enjoy FightfulSelect.com and talking to you guys because there are no events this weekend, but that doesn't mean there are no shows at Fightful. I've got a couple of my 4K videos up on YouTube as well. Got one up on CM Punk. I'm going to have one on the AEW WWE criticism. I've also got a review of the great film Peanut Butter Falcon. Go check that out, guys. Lots of cool content that I'm spending a lot of time on because these 4K videos take forever to render. But this weekend on Fightful Select, we have Alex Palowski's Sour Graps talking SmackDown. We've got the Weekender podcast with Steven Jensen talking NWA, Ring of Honor, New Japan, Beyond, NXT UK, 205 Live. It's all over the place. But leave us a thumbs up on this video. Make sure you comment below, guys. There are lots of ways you can help us without spending a dime. Commenting helps. Thumbs up helps. Subscribing helps. Scooting on over to iTunes and leaving a nice review helps us out as well. But Warren, tell the people how they can help you out.
Well, you can head on over to my own YouTube channel that I plugged a little earlier this evening. But in case you weren't around... Very good, Sean. YouTube.com/Mr. Warren Hayes. I do my own wrestling chit-chatty thing every Thursday night, live, 9 p.m. Eastern. So feel free to come join me there. You can also find the show on every podcast app as well. Or you can follow me on Twitter at Mr. Warren Hayes. And I've also started doing an NWA Power Recap every Tuesday if you want to check that out. That's also on the channel, youtube.com/Mr. Warren Hayes.
And in the morning, we're making waffles.